Will you release video of that strike so that the American people can see for themselves what happened?
I don't know what they have, but whatever they have, we'd certainly release. No problem.
It's Ken Harbaugh with the MeidasTouch Network. That was Donald Trump just a few days ago saying he had no problem releasing video of a second strike targeting survivors from that infamous September 2nd attack on an alleged drug boat. And here's Donald Trump yesterday lying about what he said.
Mr. President, you said you would have no problem with releasing the full video of that strike on September 2nd off the coast of Venezuela. Secretary Hegseth now says...
You said that. I didn't say that. This is ABC fake news.
You said that you would have no problem releasing the full bit. Okay, well, Secretary Hegseth...
No, whatever Hegseth wants to do is okay with me.
He now says it's under review. Are you ordering the Secretary to release that full video?
Whatever he decides is okay with me.
The Trump administration is now doing everything it can to prevent the release of this footage because they know how damaging it is to their story. They've had no problem releasing the other clips. Here's Pete Hegseth gloating over that first strike as the footage plays.
I can tell you that was definitely not artificial intelligence. I watched it live. We knew exactly who was in that boat. We knew exactly what they were doing.
When it comes to the second strike, it's a different story. Lawmakers who have seen the footage says it clearly shows two men clinging to an overturned hull, waving for help. That's why Hegseth doesn't want Americans to see it. Here's his excuse.
President Trump said he would have no problem if the full video of the strike is released. When can we see that video? When will you release it?
We're reviewing it right now to make sure sources, methods. I mean, it's an ongoing operation, TTPs. We've got operators out there doing this right now. So whatever we were to decide to release, we'd have to be very responsible about. So we're reviewing that right now.
I'm calling BS. And I'm not just pulling this out of thin air. I had a top secret security clearance. I flew recon missions for the Navy, and we gathered this kind of intel. And I'm telling you, the chances that the footage from that second strike contains some secret information that didn't appear in the dozens of other videos released by the DoD, what we're witnessing in real time is a cover-up. The reason Hegseth doesn't want us to see that footage is because he knows how damning it is.
At one point, the men raised their arms and seemed to signal to the U.S. aircraft above, a gesture some who watched the video of the incident interpreted as a sign of surrender. Then a second explosion finished the men off, leaving only a bloody stain on the surface of the sea. Footage of the two men's desperate final moments made some viewers nauseated, leading one to nearly vomit. It was worse than we had been led to believe.
Of course, Republicans are coming up with a never-ending stream of excuses to prevent the American people from knowing the truth and to defend President Trump. I spoke to a former Republican who worked in the first Trump administration and who shared with me what may seem to some like a shocking insight. These attacks were contemplated years ago. They were fantasized about during the first Trump administration. And Miles Taylor was there as it happened. He served in a senior role during Trump's first term, but felt compelled to blow the whistle on the many constitutional violations he observed. Miles famously authored the anonymous op-ed exposing Trump's disregard for the law, and he has since been one of Trump's most outspoken critics. His insight, having been in the room as policies like the ones we're now seeing were being contemplated, is invaluable. Here's me and Miles Taylor. Miles Taylor, welcome to the Ken Harbaugh Show. I'm betting you saw this coming. I know you saw this coming because I've read your Substack and these attacks on the boats, the double taps, the almost fetishization that this president has for maiming civilians. You actually have this line in one of your latest Substack posts. You said, "I know because I was in the room." Can you give us the context for your reaction to these clearly illegal boat strikes, either war crimes, if we are in fact in a state of war, or, and this isn't any better, outright murder if we're not in a state of war?
Yeah.
You saw it coming.
Well, look, this is very, very deeply premeditated. As far back as at least 2018, Donald Trump and his allies in the White House have been thinking about this concept of bombing civilian boats. And I know that because that's the year we took Donald Trump down to Key West, Florida, down to one of the U.S. government's key counter-drug operation centers, because we wanted to talk the president through what the threat really was and how you combat it. Because there was some growing alarm that Trump had these, as you noted at the beginning, sort of, fetishized views of how to use the military to go after these problems. And no one listening to this is going to have a deep love and affection for cartels and these murderous drug dealers and these thugs. We all want to see these people arrested and sent to prison. But just because they're very bad doesn't give us the ability to just kill them instead of arresting and prosecuting them. And even if we could do that, it's the stupid thing to do because you want to roll up these low-level guys to map out their networks to get to the high-level guys. All right, that's basic investigatory 101 against one of these threats. Donald Trump didn't have a sense of this. So we take him down to Key West, Florida, to a place called Jayada South, the Joint Interagency Task Force South, to go meet with folks to talk about the threat landscape coming into the United States, these drug flows. And on the way back to Washington, D.C., instead of that message sinking in with the administration that we need an increased law enforcement response and there's ways for the U.S. military to support it, instead, they totally got the wrong message. Trump and his aides came back with this view that we should just go bomb the shit out of all of these organizations, regardless of whether the law allowed it. And that was reflected in a conversation I had with Stephen Miller on the flight back, where he wanted to know whether the Department of Homeland Security had the assets to go launch Predator missile strikes, Predator drones with Hellfire missiles against boats with unarmed civilians in them, and what under international law would prevent the president from doing that. And you can imagine, Ken, my astonishment at being asked the question. I almost thought that was a joke, that Miller was testing, boundaries. We obviously told him that this would be illegal to do. This is the type of thing Trump would bring up with regularity, is an outlandish way to attack civilians to prove his point, and he'd have to be walked back in by the lawyers or the Homeland Security officials. Funny thing about this, Ken, is I felt like that was a very important story to tell after I left the administration. I wanted to warn people, hey, by the way, Trump's top advisor, Stephen Miller, is thinking about how to launch airstrikes against boats in international waters. We should contemplate that that's very possible in a second Trump administration. And you know what Stephen Miller did, Ken? He denied that the exchange ever happened, which I find very funny because what's one of the first things he's done in the first year in office? According to media reporting this past week, he pushed for the initiation of a government program to launch airstrikes against civilians in boats in international waters. So maybe I totally fabricated the exchange that happened in 2018, but Stephen Miller has done this anyway with Donald Trump. Anyway, long way of saying this was all very foreseeable. And now that we are living it, we need to think through how to shine the light brightly enough to show what's being done is indeed unlawful.
The legal regime under which they've justified it is almost as alarming as the kinetic action itself. They're designating these groups as terrorist organizations, which gives them almost unlimited authority to take them out. But under that argument, you have at the same time the at least rhetorical designation of groups. I'm putting that in air quotes for folks who are just listening, not watching. You have groups like Antifa being designated as terrorist organizations as well. And I think this is a window into how much power the executive can grab when they're exercising military authority going after terrorists. And we should all be afraid of this administration's cavalier attitude towards calling people terrorists.
Yes. And look, this is what I would say to folks is people get too wrapped around the language and they'll say things like, well, yeah, I mean, we are at war with drugs and we've been in a war on drugs and these people are terrorists. There's a difference between colloquial references to those things and the reality. That's like you saying, your little brother takes something from your room and you say, he's a criminal. But when you say that, you don't mean he's been convicted of a crime in a U.S. court. But the reason this is important is because when the administration says terrorist or war, it's different than us just talking rhetorically about something. They mean the actual power to wage war against these targets, which are not historically battlefield combatants. We don't treat drug dealers as battlefield combatants. We can treat them as very, very dangerous criminals, but just like almost every single very dangerous criminal, you have an entire law enforcement process, system, and regime of laws to go deal with that. You only go outside of that regime of law when you're at war with a nation state or a terrorist organization that is at war with you, operating as a de facto nation state. But now the administration, by naming whoever they want as terrorists, could basically say, we designate Ken as a terrorist, and we're going to arrest him and hold him outside of courts of law and strip him of habeas corpus. Or maybe if he's in Key West on a boat, we just blow him up instead of arresting him. That's the slippery slope that this president has put us on.
My point exactly. And the fact that they are now returning survivors of strikes back to their countries of origin puts the lie to this whole notion that they are the most dangerous terrorists we could possibly be confronting and that this level of force is required. You wouldn't do that if they were, in fact.
Yeah, imagine if we'd blown up Osama bin Laden's boat and then we said, well, we didn't kill him, so let's take him back home and give him a second try. What are you talking about? No, This guy's a terrorist. He plotted 9/11. He killed thousands of Americans. You bring him into custody. You keep him in custody. You find a way to charge him. It's an admission, Ken. They do not have a case against these people. They are targeting people arbitrarily to send a message of deterrence. And, it may work in terms of deterring other drug dealers, but in the process, they will have eviscerated the rule of law.
Last minute shopping during the holidays is the worst. You're running out of ideas, the stores are packed, and forget about finding parking. Aura Frames is the best last minute solution, a gift that actually feels thoughtful and personal. I'm one of those people who struggles with ideas for what to get my wife and family. I want something meaningful, something that doesn't feel rushed, and honestly, that pressure usually makes me procrastinate. Aura Frames, in my opinion, is the single best gift for that. Here's why. Aura Frames lets you share photos or videos from any device, and they instantly appear on the frame, wherever it is in the world, at your home, your office, or someone's home across the country or across the world. The frames are gorgeous. They display photos in true color, and they automatically adjust to the light in the room. When you turn out the lights at night, the frame turns off too, saving energy and letting you sleep. And the setup, about 2 minutes. Download the Aura app, connect to Wi-Fi, and you're done. Preload your photos before it ships. Add a message before your gift arrives. Keep adding new photos and videos anytime from anywhere. Every frame comes in a premium gift box with no price tag, truly ready to wrap and give. You can't wrap togetherness, but you can frame it. For a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver mat frames, named #1 by Wirecutter, by using promo code KEN at checkout. That's auraframes.com, promo code KEN. This deal is exclusive to listeners and frames sell out fast, so order yours now to get it in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Hey everyone, it's Ken. Quick break for a shameless pitch for my Substack and Patreon pages. To all of you who have subscribed, thank you. Your support is what makes this show possible. Anytime you see in-person reporting, whether it's trips to Ukraine to show you what is really happening on the ground, or my recent conversations with Congressman Jason Crow and Senator Tammy Duckworth, where we got on-the-record commitments to back hearings into ICE's abuses of power,
people need to know that we're taking names.
all of this only happens with your support. Every dollar that comes in through Substack and Patreon goes back into this show. And with the holidays coming up, you can give gift subscriptions as well. The links are below. Thanks for everything. Your support means the world to me. Back to the show. Well, I'm not even sure it is working in terms of discouraging other drug dealers. There is an unlimited supply of speedboats in that part of the world willing to make that journey for the amount they're being paid. And I haven't verified this, but I've heard it from a couple of sources now that the price of cocaine in Southern California is now lower than it was 3 weeks ago. I mean, if supply and demand laws apply here, they're not doing anything. And not to mention the fact that this was all supposed to be about fentanyl, and fentanyl isn't coming out of Venezuela. I mean, it is just lie after lie after lie. And you see it beginning to unravel. It's been a long time. Maybe I'm trying to think of an example of the administration this discombobulated in its inability to get its story straight, in the contradictions coming from the White House press secretary versus the Secretary of Defense, in this outrageous post by Pete Hegseth throwing the admiral under the bus. I think they know this time it's different and that the axe is going to fall. I hope you're getting that sense too.
Yeah, to a certain extent. I mean, look, the statistics validate the point that you made, Ken. I mean, we can now comfortably say that in his first year in office, Donald Trump is the most lawless president in American history. If you were using as your metric what the judicial branch of our government says, and it's the judiciary's job to assess whether an administration is doing things legally or illegally. And in just this first year, Donald Trump has had hundreds with an H, of orders against him by judges saying that the administration has broken the law. And dozens of those orders have said the president has violated the U.S. Constitution. That exceeds what entire presidents have in their entire two-term presidencies in terms of judicial rulings against them. And look, Trump's allies are going to say, look, it's the activist judges. Well, very strange that the activist judges gave other Republican presidents a pass, but this Republican president, somehow they're conspiring to work against it.
Many of them were nominated by Trump.
That's right.
I mean, this.
Many were nominated by Trump and George W. Bush and Ronald Reagan. It has nothing to do with that. And I remain a conservative. I'm not a Republican, but I remain a conservative. It has nothing to do with the stripes of these judges and the way that they vote. It has everything to do with a much simpler explanation, is the Trump administration just keeps breaking the law. It's the most lawless presidential administration we have seen in American history. And the big question is, can our institutions survive 3 more years of this guy flagrantly breaking the law over and over? And I think, Ken, what you and others are doing is helping to inform and then mobilize people to try to ensure that there is that accountability, to ensure that there is some semblance of stability so we can revive the rule of law on the back end of all of this.
That was part 1 of my conversation with Miles Taylor. In part 2, out tomorrow, we talk about the extreme threat to our civil liberties posed by Donald Trump's unilateral designations of terrorist entities. No congressional oversight, no due process. Miles sounds the alarm on how much worse this is likely to get. It's a great follow-up conversation. See you tomorrow.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.